felt like I was dying,
Liver's dumping, everything's dumping.
Yes.
You're listening to the Crucial 4 podcast series, where your journey is our passion. Now introducing the Crucial 4 founder and CEO, Charles Barber.
What's up, everybody? Today we have a phenomenal podcast for you guys. We're going to be talking about ozone with Miss Darrah from Natural Infusion Partners. We get into some really cool techniques that might seem a little taboo to you guys. And this episode is loaded with some gems, some techniques for the kids. And we talk about Darrah's favorite Crucial 4 products. All right, hope you guys enjoy the show. And if you've got any questions or comments, please leave them below. Have you been traveling?
Yes, I've been doing some traveling, and we're getting ready for some Christmas traveling and
Yeah.
all that.
Where'd you go? If you don't mind me asking.
Oh yeah. No, well, so it's been Thanksgiving. We had 20 guests at our house. Yeah. And then before that I went to LA to the biohacking conference,
Oh,
which was
cool.
awesome.
Yeah. You
And
like
then
that conference?
it was fun. It was the first time I had been to it.
Yeah.
And I was there with a vendor, so I worked, but we made so many great new friends, and it's a good community.
That's cool. So you went to work it. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. That's cool. Yeah, I bet you loved LA, right?
Oh,
I hate it.
I was surprised they had it there, honestly.
That's where they have them
But
all. They have them there in Vegas, I mean, the biohacking, does Dave still running that, or whoever Dave
yeah.
sold that off to? Yeah, so he had a few in South, where was it? Orange County. So it's like Southern California. I went
Mm.
I went to ones there, but I used to go to all the longevities and stuff too. I used to get actually invited to go to them, so I just would go. And yeah, it's like you fly into LA, and it's just like LA's LA, and it's cool, but it's like I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm cool with Southern Cal and NorCal, but like I don't know. I guess it's just all the stuff that I know about like what's going on in Hollywood and everything. Like I know they're like harping that place, and it's crazy because it's like you get there and the weather's good, but then it's like you just get this weird. I get this weird vibe like that when I'm there a little bit. So it's just like something's off-putting.
Yes.
Yeah.
There was like I really just wanted to go to the beach. Like that was my goal. I was
Right.
like, I need
Of
to put my
course.
feet in
You're
the
from
sand.
Texas. You want to go to the beach.
Yeah. And so I mean, side note, we were invited to this after party, and like just weird vibes, I don't
Yeah.
know. The people that
Well, the
kind of get
biohackers, they love injecting weird stuff in their body that just got discovered last week that could potentially make their life more, I don't know, bountiful or whatever. It's just, I don't know. Like for me, I just hate the word biohack. Like it's almost
me
like this
too.
like AI
Yeah.
thing or hacking your body. Like, why would I want to hack my body? I really just want to accentuate my body's natural processes. And I feel like people that actually understand like holistic healing, like yourself and
Yeah.
myself and people that are in our world that understand that the body has everything it needs within it to heal itself and to make that happen. And that's why oxygen utilization is so important with ozone therapy and whatnot,
Yeah.
because that's actually like the foundational currency to all these metabolic processes that, that's what we need to be talking about. And that's what we need to be showing. And we need to be looking at, people that have actually done this before instead of trying to create this new idea that maybe would work. So like for example, like blue zones, like let's look at people that are centurions that actually as a community live past 100 years. Like what are they doing, what are they eating, what's the air they're breathing, and what are the conversations they're having within their community and their collective,
Yeah.
versus like some new gadget that I need to go buy that basically gets plugged into artificial electricity to make it work. And don't get me wrong, I've got a few of these things laying around. I'm not gonna completely hate on
Same.
them, especially when you talk about the EMF stuff, but some of the stuff they're into, just like, and the
Yeah.
supplements, I'm totally not with. But anyways, I digress.
I
I
was
can be kind of.
curious what you thought about methylene blue.
Oh, MB, it. I've used it, and When I first started taking it for the transcriptions, and I never really noticed much until I took the one that they spiked with nicotine, caffeine, and CBD, and
Mm.
that made me feel
Oh
so
yeah.
wacky. Like everyone's all like blowing their blue tongue out, saying they love it and it gives them good energy. That gave me the most cracked out, whack energy like I had almost ever felt. It was the same with this other company that developed the kava and kratom
Yeah.
extract called Feel Good or Feel Free. And the guy, I guess, was basically a recovering heroin addict or a pill popper. And he developed this product. And like I saw Ben Greenfield posting it saying, "Oh, this is amazing. It gave me like 8 hours of energy." And da-la-la. I took that stuff and I thought I had to like sit down. I thought I was going to puke. My head was spinning. So,
Oh
yeah, so I don't, but methylene blue by itself, and then the research of it and looking at it like by itself, I kind of I like it, especially if I'm like, we did 2 weeks in Costa Rica for my birthday, and I was looking for land and looking for a farm and all this type of stuff. I was out getting blasted when I was surfing, so it's like I can put all that zinc oxide on my white face as I can, but I suck
yeah.
at surfing, so I get like hit with the waves a lot, so that shit washes off. So I was like, what can I be taking to help, mitigate the effects of the sun? And I felt like
Yeah.
the MB really, it does kind of help with that, the
Oh,
radiation.
cool. That makes
So
sense. Yeah.
yeah,
That's kind of how
but
I feel about NAD too. It's like people can just get a little carried away with how it makes you feel. And I've even
right.
heard that with NB2 is like it's a little addicting. And then
Yeah,
yeah, and then you stack things, and that's what I see a lot kind of in the biohacking world, and especially at the conference, you're there and you want to try all the things at once. And I was there doing IVs ozone there, and I was like, what all have you already done today? Because ozone is kind of one of those things that if you've done 20 other detoxing things, you might not want to do
right,
stack this. So,
right.
anyways.
Like you don't, and in fairness to the ozone, you don't need to do all this other stuff,
Totally, which is why
you
I've never
know.
even tried MB. I'm like, that's the
Yeah.
cool thing about ozone is it really does all the things. So,
Well, and I'm always trying to get people, like we get lots of emails. A lot of times we'll get things like, hey, I've been doing hyperbaric, or I've been looking at a brown gas machine, like a hydrogen machine,
mm,
and other oxidative therapies, and they're like, how does it compare to ozone? And like for me, I kind of get annoyed because I'm like, first off, don't let the company selling you a machine tell you the difference. Like I'm
right.
I'm invested in you purchasing my machine, even though I believe in ozone more than hyperbaric and brown gas. And it's not that I don't believe in those therapies; those are great therapies. I'm not shunning them, but when you look at like the ease of use, when you look at can I actually buy one of these, like the cost to do, like it's like
True.
ozone's the shit. Like come on, man.
True.
Like it's the name of the game is oxygen utilization, right? And if we
Hmm.
can get our body to utilize oxygen better, then win-win. And ozone's the only oxidative therapy that can do that and not actually oxidize you. And so, and obviously used in the correct format and all this stuff, which I actually want to go into that with you a little bit because I know
Okay.
you probably have dealt with that a lot. But it's like the safest, it's the most cost effective, and it does exactly what we need it to do in the long term. And
So true.
it's just like a no-brainer, at that
Yeah.
point. It's like why do I need to know about some new device or new biohacking supplement or new age thing that's coming around, a new quantum device or some crap? I'm just like, well, how's your oxygen utilization, and do you measure it? Do you ever do a VO2 max test? Do you ever see like how much oxygen can you hold? And like, because it's hard to measure oxygen utilization, it really is. There's no like device really out there, from what I understand, that you can measure it, but you can measure your VO2 max, which to me is a direct correlation to your body's ability to utilize oxygen. Like how well can you hold, oxygen capacity under, what is it, anaerobic or aerobic? I guess it's aerobic stress, right? When you're, what I'm talking about, right? With the mask, you put the mask
You
on.
and you exercise, and then they are able to measure the oxygen going in and the CO2 coming out.
Right. And then
Yeah,
that will tell people kind of like their athletic threshold, if you will, like how in shape you could or couldn't be or where you're at. And it's
yeah.
it's kind of an expensive assessment, but I remember I got mine done with Equinox because I was working with them. And I had just come out of oh my a child. And so like I wasn't training, I wasn't doing anything, but I still was doing ozone pretty regularly. And they like looked at me like, "You said you haven't worked out in like 3 years?" And I was like, "Well, I haven't really done crap, a little yoga here and there, but I still do my sauna and I still do my ozone." They're like, "You're like in top shape," you know what I mean? And it's just like, well, give it to the ozone.
Yeah.
So
Have you ever had gone to the mountains and noticed that you don't get as like sick since you've been doing ozone? Because I get
yeah,
that question a
so
lot.
yeah. So it depends on where I go. If I go to Breck and my buddy has a condo like on the mountain and I stay
Yeah.
saturated at that altitude, it's not as bad. But for a while, like I had to have something. So I actually would take my machine with me. Like we would just drive it up and then I'd have no problems. But for sure, when I go to like Pagosa, where I
Mm,
come off the Wolf Creek, and I'm more like near the
drive
San
down.
Juan River and I'm down, like, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. But
Yeah.
yeah, but for me, the area that I notice it the most is jujitsu. And like the guys that I roll with are like, I'm like the smallest guy in the gym, right? Like I'm a buck 50. I'm like 5'9". Like everyone else is like 6 foot to 5'11" to 6'2". The average weight in there is like 200 pounds, and like they're like they look at me like this son of a bitch doesn't stop. I'm like, you choke me out and tap me, but I'm gonna come right back at your ass. Like I just like nonstop. And I love to train in the morning too, and I love to work on the farm as well for around 2 or 3 hours a day, and then I do jujitsu at night. So, and then I do Crucial Four right in between all that.
Wow.
So it's like, yeah, even my trainer, my ATG trainer, he's like, I don't know how in the hell you do all this physical activity. To me, it's all. I mean, I really like my elk velvet. Like that's definitely like something I'm always having around me. Oh, look at you, girl!
I know.
Look at you, girl!
I felt like you were gonna ask me what my favorite product is, and I was gonna choose that.
The elk, yeah. And it's so funny because we both do ozone a lot. Maybe there's a correlation there, but
That is
between having this and the ozone, like I just feel
so
like
good.
unstoppable, like limitless to the full degree. But
Yeah, I
let's
like that.
digress. Would you go ahead and just introduce yourself? Like, let's act like we don't know each other for a second. And could you
Sure.
please introduce yourself and let people know who you are? And then we'll continue our conversation.
Sure. So my name is Darrah, and I'm a registered nurse, and I've been a nurse since 2010. Graduated from Baylor, from Texas. Technically, I grew up in California until I was about 10, but I've lived in Texas now for longer. I'm a Texan, and so in 2010, I graduated from nursing school and kind of went into the hospital setting, naturally. And I feel like I've had a really unconventional nursing career. It's just been kind of one of those things where I look back now and I'm like, oh, duh, unconventional. That's why. But
Right.
then it felt very kind of difficult, right? It's like I had a new job every 2 years because it felt like uh, there was just something that didn't sit right with me with what I was doing. So I started in pediatrics. The politics of the hospital system weren't my favorite. And I also really had a hard time with night shifts. And so I found myself switching over to home health and pretty early in my nursing career. And if you've ever done home health as a nurse, like, it's very challenging and it takes um, a certain type of nurse skill to do that. And I found I got really passionate in home health because I felt like there was a big need for that. Like
Mm.
I felt like empowering people to be at home and be well and stay out of the hospital was kind of where I wanted to be. So I was in home health for a long time. And in that time I learned infusions, IV infusions. So I was doing like nutrition IVs, chemo IVs at home, a lot of IV antibiotics, which now I think back, cringe. I
Mm-hmm.
remember having Lyme patients that were on IV antibiotics for a year straight.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went into neurology. Actually, there's a lot of IV, like biologics and immunomodulating drugs that I would infuse. And at that time, so I have two kids. One is 8 and one is 5, and they're both boys. And when my 5-year-old was about 3 months old, he got pretty severe eczema, and we were doing topical steroids and topical antifungals on a tiny infant baby, and
Mm-hmm.
nothing was working. And I switched pediatricians about 5 times, and I just felt like there was a reason why he was having this and why the drugs weren't working, and no one could give me an answer. And so yeah, I someone told me to remove dairy from my diet. Tried that. We got some nutritional deficiency testing. That was when I was introduced to functional medicine,
Mm-hmm.
and turned out he was severely deficient in omega-3 fatty acids. And
Mm-hmm.
so once I kind of changed that supplement and that, his eczema cleared right up. And it just was such an eye-opening experience for me. And
What'd you use, by the way, if you don't mind me asking? Did you use cod liver oil, or did you use like an algae oil, or what?
so this was 4 years ago,
Right, right,
5
right,
years ago. And
right.
so then my functional medicine pediatrician recommended Nordic Naturals.
Yeah, cod liver
And
oil.
mm-hmm.
I'm
Is
a
that Oh, is it?
Yeah,
Okay. Cool.
Nordics. Yeah, and they have one of the better ones actually.
Great.
I
Well,
think
that's
they
what I
do. That
use.
I
Yeah.
took it for years, Nordics, and tasted
Yeah.
clean and fresh and
Now I use Rosita, like
yeah.
cod liver oil.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I used Nordic Naturals with him, and it was the infant formula. Um, and that did it for him. And so I started kind of going down all the rabbit holes, all the podcasts. And at the time, I was still in conventional practice, and I would be talking to my MS patients about the Walls protocol and how,
Mm.
we can optimize nutrition to get
Mhm.
better. And, it was like 50% of my patients there wanted to know what they could do, with their diet and things at
Right.
home to feel better. 50% of my patients didn't really
And
care
give a
that they
shit.
weren't getting better,
Yeah.
right? It's like
Yeah, yeah.
they were
Totally.
okay with just not getting worse,
Right.
but not getting better.
Right.
And it was really hard for me. And I remember was like talking to one of my neurologists, and I was like, "Did you know that you can reverse cognitive decline in Alzheimer's?" And they were like, "What? You can't be telling people that, like." So yeah, and like I was kind of made fun of for being so healthy, like. So it was time to move on. There was a big functional medicine practice in Dallas right across the street. And
Yeah.
I just walked over there on my lunch break one day and was like, "Hey, I don't have any experience except for obviously my own family's experience in functional medicine, but I can do IVs."
You're an
And
RN. You had more
I'm an
experience
RN.
than
Totally.
99% of the people walking in there. You had, way more experience. I mean, you knew
Yeah,
anatomy, you knew physiology, you knew a ton.
sure.
People
And
don't realize that nurses might as well be doctors. And I know this because like my sister is a nurse. And I know what she went through and everything as you were talking, I was like, "Oh, I've heard all this before."
yeah,
So,
nursing school is medical school condensed into 2
mhm.
years. Like
Mhm.
it's super tough. A lot of people
Mhm.
don't make it through nursing school.
Mhm.
I remember telling family members, "Hey, I'm going to be a nurse," and they're like, "That's great. You can do anything with a nursing degree. Like you
Mhm.
can do anything. It's limitless." And so,
Cool.
and that's so true. And I thank you for saying that, because I really do feel passionate about empowering other nurses to step out of the hamster wheel. And like
Right.
you really do feel stuck when you're
Mhm.
in the system, hospital system. But there's, again, so many things you can do. All that to say, I landed this really great position at a busy functional medicine office. They had just brought in a doctor who had an ozone generator and was like, "Hey, I have this machine. If you can find a nurse who's willing to learn IVs, like I'll teach you." And so he was my mentor, really great, really great guy. Like you would probably really have a lot of fun conversations with him. He's an ER, like he's an undercover ER doctor. Like he's working in McKinney at an urgent care center, but is like total, biohacker and
Cool.
all that. But anyways, yeah. And so it just kind of, I started my own business in 21, January of 21. I'm about to have my 2 year. And that kind of just happened. Like it just all happened for me for sure. And it just was so cool how I got to be where I'm at now. Um,
Did y'all hear that? It happened for her, not to her.
totally.
Right?
Totally.
And that's how the journey always unfolds. It'll take you this way and take you that way. And I think a lot of
Yeah.
times we just have to have faith and trust in the process
Yeah.
and know that it's part of it, you know.
And I think, finding that community where I wasn't
Yeah.
the weird
Ostracized.
person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
That really helped.
Oh, it's
And
everything. It's
yeah.
actually it's everything, because if you can't coalesce with other people in the same vibration or same vernacular, or however you want to put it, um, it stumps you, because you can only go as far as you can understand at the current awareness that you're at. And in the beginning, we're so dependent on the giants in those new fields and dependent upon their information that they put out. And that's a phenomenal that they do that for us. But being able to actually communicate with them and talk with them, whether it be on a monthly or bi-monthly or whatever, just something to give you that opportunity to just sit and talk and
Yeah.
figure things out. It's magical, actually, because there's things that they're actually learning from you that they might not have known, and vice versa. Obviously we learn a lot from them, but
Totally.
it's so important.
Yeah. And I think, imposter syndrome is such a common thing,
Yeah.
especially in the nurse world. Like we are kind of trained to be like, you're not a doctor. You don't get to make medical decisions for
Hmm.
people, or you can't make recommendations. So like, who are you to do this? And um, I think I definitely went through that for sure. And it was my community around me at the time. Like I became really good friends with a chiropractor and an acupuncturist and a massage therapist and an energy worker who are all telling me like, listen, like you have the ability to empathize and heal and communicate and teach and share. And like, you don't have to be within the constraint of what you think it has to
Mm.
be in order to do big things,
Mm. Yeah.
you know, and that
Yeah.
helped.
Yeah, because I mean, we're taught to, go to college after high school and get a job. And especially if you go to the medical field, your thought process is to stay in that field. And that field doesn't have a lot of options. It's like you work for a hospital or you work for an organization that, you know, basically has the whole industrial insurance complex thing
Mm.
happening, weird thing happening, where it's like,
Yeah.
you know, medicine's so expensive. So it's like, calling people can, only use their insurance for it. And then that's limiting to what actual therapies they could or couldn't get. You know what I mean? It's not like, yeah, HSA works for ozone therapy and in your infusions you do, and my foods that I offer, but no one uses that HSA account.
I know. It's
and
so,
it's really a joke. It's just like, I mean, it's tax deduced money, and so they could put. If people don't know what a HSA account, it's a health savings account, and some companies offer it if you work for like Google or whatever, or we'll just call it Toyota or whatever. You can basically put some of your paycheck away in what's called an HSA account, and they don't tax you on it because they're obviously taxing you on, your income. And certain modalities or healing modalities, natural modalities, can actually be used for it, like massages and things like this, and obviously the crucial four missing food groups, the infusions that
hmm,
Darrah does. But like I said, no one really uses it or knows about it.
Well, I feel like less and less people, or I mean, more and more people are less concerned about insurance coverage
Right?
when we're in this field, right? Because it's like we, for wellness, a lot of things that are preventative or wellness focused aren't covered anyways.
Right.
And so you can always get a discount on for not having your insurance, paying cash. And at the end of the day, you might be just spending less money if you're gonna, and you can put your money towards investing into your health with all of this wellness and prevention and
Mm,
kind of health tools instead. I'm seeing
right.
more of that.
Right. Yeah. And maybe there's something bigger there too, because as you mentioned it, I started thinking like well, maybe that's how the ethos needs to be in order for people to understand that maybe even the job that they're working is not for them, and understand what
Yeah,
sovereignty really looks like. Because when you spend your own dollar on yourself to better yourself, the values change
yeah,
in the person's life and the family. You start to value the way you feel, and you start to value your family in your general health in a totally different way, versus like the 50% that's like, as long as I'm not getting worse, just keep giving me this shot. It's
mm,
almost like I don't believe that those people want that. I just believe those people have lost hope, and they don't think that there's another side to the coin. They think that like, as long as I don't get better, as long as it's not going to get any worse, and okay, that's okay. And
right.
the
That's what they've been
idea,
told.
yeah, and the idea of changing diet or whatever seems overwhelming to them for some reason. There's some type of block or construct there in the mind, or in the psyche, that is totally sabotaging them. And we are our own worst enemies, and it's definitely something internal that we deal with. And so it's always tough, when you get faced with that, but it's always, our job to just keep being that light, and just keep being that message, and not everyone's for me, not everyone's for you, and that's okay. We just kind of keep doing our thing, and the ones that are supposed to come to us will, and people we're
Yeah.
supposed to meet will meet, and because we've probably met them before in past lives and all that jazz.
Mm,
So it's
yeah.
it's the cosmic giggle, I call it. But yeah, it's cool. Well, thank you,
Cool.
Dar, for being on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me. It's so fun.
And yeah, so for you guys that didn't ri- understand fully what she was saying, her message and her story is that she has a company called Infusion Partners, right? That's what you have
Natural
now.
infusion partners.
Natural
Yeah.
Infusion. And you guys specialize in ozone and vitamin IVs,
Yeah.
and that's the two main things, right? Or am I missing something?
I like to keep it really simple.
Yeah.
And that ozone really is, people ask me all the time, what should I do for this? And I'm like, well, I'm going to say ozone, right? Because that's just my answer for everything. It's
Yeah.
so versatile. But yeah, my focus is in ozone, and I do IV, ozone, MAH, major autohemotherapy. I have the UV light machine, which is like an add-on to the ozone. And then all the other things that I offer kind of just like in support to receiving ozone therapy.
Hmm.
There's a lot of IV places kind of popping up all
Yeah.
over the
So,
place.
yeah, and I think a lot of people know. Could you explain a little bit more about the UV light? Because I love that therapy too, and I don't think a lot of people know about it. I think that it's something that's been around, but you see it work magic with ozone. I mean, everything works magic with
Totally.
ozone, but the UV light and
Yeah.
ozone's on a whole nother level.
It really is. I was doing ozone on, Lyme mold clients for several months before I got trained in UV light, and that we
Hmm.
started incorporating it at my
Hmm.
last job. And the difference was outstanding. Like, I mean, we're
Yeah.
just a really amazing people. We're doing great with ozone, but once we added UV light, it was like almost like, you know, decreased detox symptoms from it. Just people were able to tolerate the detox better. And also, really, so the unfortunate thing is that it's expensive to add on, right? Because what we do is there's a tube, the IV tubing is special in that it has a glass quartz insert that you put inside of a box that has UV light. So it's UVA, B, and C, and you insert this piece of the tubing into the box, and
Mm-hmm.
and then everything has to be ozone resistant. So and all of that has to then be thrown away. So it's really an expensive therapy, which
Mm-hmm.
sucks. But so for that reason, I typically talk about it mostly where I've seen differences the most in autoimmune patients, chronic or acute viral illnesses, and cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And like there's a lot of, have you ever heard of Hope for Cancer?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They use this same machine that I have. It's been really, really great for, adjunct cancer therapy.
Yeah.
And this therapy, again, it's called UVBI. So ultraviolet blood irradiation is
Right.
kind of the long fancy word for it.
Yeah.
But when you combine it with ozone, it they're synergistic, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
Mm-hmm.
and to me, it makes sense because that's how our ozone layer is created around our Earth. Is the UV rays from the sun come and create energy to break the bond of O2, and then O3 is formed. And so, to me, it actually makes perfect sense that they're
Right.
so synergistic.
Mm-hmm.
And we can really, what I like to do is alter the dose of ozone. So we could do UV light therapy with a tiny bit of ozone, and we could do UV light therapy with high doses of ozone.
Nice.
And it just kind of depends on what the goal is and kind of what we're trying to address. But it's such a great, I mean, I've seen it work.
Right. And just so people know, like you're pulling the blood out, you're ozonating. Are you ozoning it first? Are you giving like an ozone injection first and then pulling it out and then hitting it with the light, or is this all happening through like autohemotherapy and
Yeah.
UV
So
light?
it's an add-on step to major autohemotherapy. And
Okay.
for major autohemotherapy, if you're unfamiliar, what you do is you start the IV, and it feels and looks a lot like a normal infusion. There's a bag with IV
Mm-hmm.
tubing.
Mm-hmm.
So you start the IV, you put the bag below your heart to gently drain a sample of
Mm-hmm.
blood from the IV site to the bag. And that
Mm-hmm.
process only takes about 10 minutes. We're using about a cup of blood. And then in the bag, we'll fill a syringe of ozone gas, O3 gas, and we'll inject that gas into the bag with the blood. We mix it around, and then we use gravity to give it back. And so with UV light, it's just an extra step where as it's going out and as it's going back in, it passes through the UV light box.
Right. And do you know, because it's like you said, people had less reactions to ozone. We'll call it maybe less Herxheimer reaction. Um, do you know the science of like what the light's doing? Because like when I researched this, it was kind of like we don't really know exactly what's happening, but we know that it works really well. Do you have
Yeah.
any like just your own opinion, your own thought on? I mean, I think you nailed it when you said like look in nature and the sun, you know, and the ozone layer and how that is all happening. That matrix of cosmic energy is what I call it because it's the sun, it's the cosmic energy, and that UV is like that
Mm,
cosmic energy coming in.
yes.
I would love for you
Yeah,
to
and
elaborate on
that
that.
is my opinion for sure. To clarify, when I did the training, it was like UVC is, for sure we know that it has antimicrobial, benefits to it. They use C light to disinfect surfaces and, air systems and stuff like that. So C is going to be definitely it's a germicidal light. They say A is like an immunomodulating effect that happens. And so, um, exactly how that's happening, not sure. But then B, they say, is more of like a balancing light. And now you can get UVBI machines that have full spectrum light, which
Right, I've seen
I think,
those.
yeah, it's just like we don't have as humans all the information.
Yeah.
Right? And so I don't know what the complete science is, but what I've feel when I do them myself
Right.
and what my patients tell me they feel is just like you said, it's like you're happy when you're in the sun, right? It's like the sun makes you happier. There's a lot of things that are happening in the under the surface in our body from the sun that we don't all even know all of that. But what we do know is that when we're in the sun, we feel great.
Right.
Same thing with your blood. Like you just feel better.
Right.
It's a little, it's like happy light for your blood.
Yeah. Well, and it's like food. It's like a nutrient,
Yeah.
right? It's almost like it should be its own class. And we've classified light really as vitamin D, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of like where we've taken this idea of light and turned it into a something, that we can quantify, I guess, in a way. And that's kind of like where vitamin D comes in. And we all know the importance of that. And so, yeah, it's so mystical to me. I just love it. I love stuff like that though. So kind
And it does, like, I know it will increase like red blood cell production,
of, hmm
which then also has like an effect on your oxygen
hmm
utilization and, in general, how you feel. So there are things that they have like proven and shown with UV
yeah,
light,
yeah.
but I do agree that there is some, you know, mysticalness to
It's
it.
got to be turning on certain genes in the DNA.
Totally.
That's kind of like where I'm at because we know that vitamin D like can affect over 3,000 different gene expressions in the body. And so naturally, the UV light therapies I feel like are doing that. And what's interesting is like the same benefits we see from light, we actually can see the same benefits with ozone. But for whatever reason, when you add them together, you get this synergistic effect. And that's what's so
Yeah.
interesting to me because everything
Yeah.
that you mentioned about that UV light can do, ozone technically can do the same thing, right? But
Mhm.
it's more of a direct. Whereas in ozone is more of a root kind of nourishment. Like it's fixing us at, a lot of people talk about mitochondria this, mitochondria that. But when you go into like oxygen utilization and ozone therapy, there's like even a deeper layer of wellness that you're getting than, just ATP production. And
Mhm.
we obviously know ozone helps that, but you're allowing your body to be able to utilize oxygen better by creating those reactive oxygen species, because a lot of times I feel like people think that when you do ozone that this O3 gas is like going around in your body and this
Mhm.
O3 molecules going around and it's like destroying viruses and doing all these things, and that's not what's happening. As soon as it enters the bloodstream, it's changing its structure because it's not molecularly
It's
balanced.
reactive. It's just
It's extremely unstable,
unstable. Yeah.
right? And but when you say unstable, people think, oh, it's unstable, and they're like, eh, and it's like, no, it's not
Mhm.
like that. You want it to be unstable because you want the O2, you want the O3 to split into one oxygen atom and then the O2, which is two oxygen atoms. That singlet is the magic. That O1
Mhm.
is actually what we're finding out is the magic, and that's what's really creating those reactive oxygen species. And based on my understanding, the type of nutrition we eat is going to determine the type of species that are actually produced in our body that the ozone can actually make. So, the
Yeah.
more nutrition we have in our body, the better we take care of ourselves, the better the ozone works. And I just find that to be so fascinating, because when I was first educated on ozone, the guy that taught me was like, "Oh yeah, it goes in there and it kills the virus." I mean, it was just like the dumbest explanation, and I just kind of went with it because I didn't know at the time. I don't think I was like 21 or 22 years old when I first got into ozone therapy, and yeah, that guy didn't know what the hell he was talking about. But then as you start to actually learn, and granted, we have so much information that has come to us in the last decade about ozone too. So I'll say that before I just
Yeah.
bash somebody. But I just hate when teachers teach you based off like monetary gain and they don't teach you based on sincerity. Instead of saying like, really don't know, instead of it saying, oh no, it goes in there and kills all these viruses. That ozone just goes around and does its thing. And so you start to get the wrong idea of what's actually happening physiologically in the body with it, and then you start to think all the hearsay like, oh well, no wonder ozone can oxidize you, oh no wonder, da, da, da. But in fact it can't oxidize you, because under a pH of 7.0. That just, it can't physiologically happen. You can do too much ozone, and I have tried. I have yet to find that
Mhm.
that threshold, and I suggest that no one tries that. And it's not that I tried it. I've been able to do high amounts of ozone for a long time consistently, but then I also lay off. But I also do a sauna regularly. I eat all my shakes. I eat really healthy, and I
Yeah.
can handle it. But I'm also real intuitive too. It's like if I notice something is off, like if I'm
Yeah.
doing insufflation and I'm filling the 750 milliliter bag all the way up, and I'm running at like, for our machine, like a 132nd, which is like the highest gamma, like 100 gamma per liter or whatever it is, like the highest strength that you can.
Yeah.
um you know, I can actually handle that, but I would never tell somebody else to do that,
Right.
because I've had people that have gotten our machines and done like those super low dose, like 200 milliliters at like super low concentrations. And they're like, man, I, I had a Herxheimer reaction. I haven't been feeling well for like 2 days. But then when I start to like really dive deeper in with these people, they've been on like antibiotics their whole lives. They're on another pharmaceutical. They eat out like pretty much all their meals. They're, maybe 30, 40 pounds overweight. They don't exercise regularly. And it's just so appalling to me, really. I'm just like, man, that's crazy. And so when that started happening, I got kind of with the staff and the legal team, and I was like, so what do we do in these instances where these people are like literally so unhealthy that they can't even do like super low dose ozone without like having some type of reaction, and that's when they were like, well, you gotta like cover your ass with a waiver and you gotta like
Yeah.
educate people properly.
Education.
Yeah.
Huge piece of it. Yeah.
And so that's why I always tell people now, and I will always say this, is like, for me, the name of the game with ozone is low and slow and consistent. Like, just be
Yeah.
consistent with your ozone use, and you'll see the benefits.
Hmm.
Especially with all the autoimmune shit, right? That's going on, that everyone's got something. If you're gonna kick an autoimmune issue,
Yeah.
you got to be consistent with it. You can't just do like one therapy and expect everything to be better.
Yeah.
You've really got to get in there, and in order for ozone to work, it needs to kind of be slow dripped within you, over a good period of time, and you can see
Well, yeah, I
numbers.
mean, I was just going to add to that. Like, since I've see patients, right, like I've seen a lot of this, right?
Yeah.
I have been able to kind of pull through some patterns I notice with, I do think general health does have to do with the chances of you having a Herxheimer reaction. But what I've noticed is definitely nervous system dysregulation. People that
Mm,
are experiencing fight or flight a lot, and whether that be because of trauma or because of toxins, nervous system regulation seems to be a component to how well you tolerate ozone therapy.
right.
Um, the other one is obviously level of toxins. So, like you had mentioned, the guy who had a lot of antibiotics growing up, had a poor diet, maybe had been exposed to mold at some point, maybe has some underlying viruses, heavy metal toxicities. The more your toxic bucket is filled, and the less you're doing things like movement and drinking plenty of water and pooping regularly and all of these kind of foundational ways that we can support our organs to drain those toxins, like they're obviously building up for a reason. And then if we
Yeah.
go out in there and kill them all with ozone
Right.
and stimulate our immune system to go to work all of a sudden, you're going to feel horrible, right?
Right.
The things I've noticed that contribute to, it seems like about 30% of the population are sensitive to any detoxing modality. And then ozone is
Ah.
such a powerful, tool for detox, or it can
Yeah.
be if you use it in certain dosing and frequency. And so
Right.
what I've noticed is it's quite a bit of people, 30%. Now, 75% of people will probably do it and feel great and fine the first time. But there are, and so what I've noticed with that population is a nervous system dysregulation for sure seems to be a contributing factor. And then those high toxic load patients who are having a hard time optimizing the health of their liver and their bowels and their lymphatic
Mm,
systems that don't do well with ozone. And so
yeah.
the insufflations, especially like ears and nose, those are typically tolerated well at low doses,
Yeah.
working your way up to higher doses. But for the rectal insufflations and for IV for sure, you want to make sure that you're working with someone who can help you figure out a protocol that's going to be gentle at first
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Low and
holistic.
slow. Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
always telling people too to sauna because I found there's a synergy too with the UV light and not a wet sauna, but a dry sauna. You see a lot
Mm.
of wet sauna applications with ozone.
Yeah.
And I actually feel like that's like the one, not the best way to do ozone, because there was a lady that used to make the ozonated olive oil in Dallas, and I forget her name. I think it was Sally. I forget her name, and she told me that she educated me on ozone like a long time ago about how, like, hey, once the temperature is above 80 degrees, if you're pumping ozone gas in these saunas, that it's basically just dissipating, and then
Mhm.
people get all these benefits they think like they get because they see black on the towel from the wet sauna, and they think that there's ozone correlation there. And I've even done, because I used to have a wet sauna like that, a steam sauna like that, and I've even done those saunas without ozone, and the black stuff, it's like just shit on your skin. It's just dirt on your skin that
Mm.
goes into the towel. It's not like it's like toxins and stuff.
Mm.
But that is something, anyways, that I think is BS. But I think using the dry sauna or the infrared, far and near infrared light with the ozone is like, that's been my combo. And I just feel like if people can like sweat and sit and sweat and like start to slowly like get their lymphatic to kind of move, get the skin, the epidermis opened up with skin brushing and just sweating, that they won't have such an issue uh, with ozone. And again, that's only for, with, like you said, 30% of the people. I would even say for us, it's like, I would say at all the people, since we've been selling the machines, it's like a more of a 5%, but you see way more people on that spectrum than I do. And you're way more hands-on than I am, but that's just kind of like the advice I give people is like, are you saunaing? Are you doing any like charcoal? Because charcoal's another one that I find to work well with ozone if people are kind of,
Binders are vital if you're going
mm-hmm.
to be doing ozone for a long period of time.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And that's the other thing is like, you see a lot of these protocols and then you see a lot of this maintenance. Um, and like for me, it's like low and slow is the name of the game. I would love for you to kind of elaborate that. Like, what do you consider long term? Is it like daily, every day long term? Is it maintenance considered long term for you? Or what do you consider long term use? Where you
so
could find yourself kind of like, make sure you've got a complete protocol. Like, don't just be doing ozone every single day, right? For 3 weeks or
right.
whatever.
Yeah. So if the goal is for someone to detox something, like they know that they have heavy metals or mold or,
Mold.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
mold, you know, then that protocol for ozone, so low and slow to me means not more for IV therapy is going to be not more than once a week. I
And that's
think it
like
takes,
auto hemotherapy or
yes,
direct IV.
no direct IV. I don't
Right.
endorse that, but major autohemotherapy.
Okay.
And, at standard dosing, or even especially if you're doing high dosing, I've
Mm-hmm.
seen patients come to me and they're DIYing like their Lyme protocol. And they're like, oh, I went to down the street that a place and I did IV ozone 7 days in a row. And I'm like, what?
No
You
way.
know,
No
that's
way.
insane. You shouldn't do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Don't do that
Yeah.
again.
I think I
So
know where they
once a
went
week,
too.
but
'Cause I think I know where they went to do that too. I think I
yeah,
know that guy. That's the guy I've
yeah.
been talking about.
Yeah, and it's common because
Yeah.
there's places, again, more and more IV places are popping up, and there a lot of med spas are adding this service to it, and I think it's great. Like I think ozone should be more available and talked about and utilized, but when you're doing it from not a holistic perspective.
Right.
Like, how does the whole body need to be when doing this therapy?
Or you got your
Looking,
weekend certification, right? Like,
yeah, well, yeah, and yeah, and they're not, the practitioner that's doing the therapy doesn't actually know how to manage a patient, especially a chronic ill patient, through
right.
something like a detox protocol using ozone. So anyways, this guy comes to me, he's been at this other place 7 days in a row, IV ozone, IV glutathione, um, all the things.
Liver's dumping, everything's dumping, every.
Yes. I mean, he was like, I felt like I was dying, you know? And so for me, low and slow for a detox protocol using IV ozone is once a week. And really, you don't need more than that. Like, I really think it's important for your body to, it's 72 hours, right?
Mhm.
The
Ozone
ozonides
can live in
are,
the body. Yeah.
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 So I think it's going to take 3 days for what we've just done to do its complete job, and then rest and, let your body have a little bit of
Evaluate.
time off,
Yeah.
and then do it again. And so
Mhm.
once a week for 5 to 10 IV infusions for a heavy detox. That's what a protocol would look like for me. And
Cool.
before someone does that, I want to see that they've been able to tolerate a binder like charcoal, but I really like Cellcore's binders.
Hmm.
Or I don't know if you have a binder, but I think a binder for a good month prior to starting a protocol like that.
Yeah.
And also, there's a little bit of an assessment I'll do to make sure that people's drainage pathways are open. So if you're not sweating, definitely do the sauna and do the
Right.
infrared sauna, because that's going to get you to sweat.
Right.
Um, and then if your liver gallbladder duct, if they need support, do that first.
Right.
You know, if you're not drinking enough water and you're not moving enough, do that first too.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And even eating, I feel like if people are fasting and they're doing ozone, that this can
Yes.
be a problem because what people don't realize
Stress.
about fasting is that when we talk about fasting and we look in nature and we see like an animal fasting, when an animal goes and fasts because he needs to heal, they go and they lay down and they don't move. They do nothing while they
Mm,
fast. They're not going to work. They're not dealing with emails. They're not picking up kids. They're not going to soccer games. They're not going to the
yeah.
gym. They're not physically or mentally doing anything.
Oh,
And that is the
interesting.
proper way to fast. So this
Mm,
is where when we see like, oh, you shouldn't fast, oh, you should fast, and both people are right, in my opinion. And most of the time, in both of these instances, both people are right for most things because there's something underlying that's not being talked about. And for fasting, for me, it's like if you're gonna fast, don't think you're gonna go to work and do your normal thing. You're gonna wreck your body, you're gonna wreck your adrenals. And if you
adrenals,
then go and try to detox or do like an ozone therapy, like for me, it's like when I get done doing an ozone, I'm ready to eat. And like I
yeah.
try to eat before. And if
Yeah.
like I'm hungry, I'll never do an ozone. I'll eat and then do an ozone because
Yes.
it's gonna like that's gonna like makes me feel really, it's gonna make me feel so much better, right? So, but if I
Protein.
skipped a meal and do an
Yeah.
ozone and I'm speeding everything up because I feel like that's kind of what's happening. I'm getting all this oxygen, things are moving around, all my metabolic processes are rocking, and there's
Yeah.
no fuel there to make that happen. You
Right.
that I think maybe that is what people maybe feel as a Herxheimer too is reaction, because the Herxheimer word and I feel like it's something we don't really fully understand, and it's also something that we don't really know what's going on.
Yeah.
And we call it, oh, you're just detoxing. You got too much toxins. Your body couldn't release them. I almost feel like it's more of like you don't have any reserves there for the ozone to do the work it needs to do, and so
And
you
also
can,
minerals.
yeah, same, right? Minerals, nutrition, all of that, right? If
Yeah.
that's not there, if that's not present, and then you start doing ozone, how is the ozone actually going to be able to do the like it's going to accentuate your natural ability to detox. But if you still need nutrients to do that stuff, like you still need minerals, like you said, to do that stuff. So if you're already deficient in the quadrant and then you go, it's the same with fasting. If you're already deficient in certain nutrients and then you fast, you're just like exacerbating your issue long term and
Yeah.
making everything kind of worse. So there definitely is a correlation there. But
Yeah, I agree. And I think that ozone is a tool, like a really powerful tool that should be, reserved for um, when A, like you need it, and B, like you're ready for it, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And my personal journey, I would do a couple 3 week insufflation protocols, but I found myself never actually able to do the full 3 weeks. I always found my intuitive self going in maybe 4 or 5 days insufflation, and then I would like skip Saturday, Sunday, and then I might start again Monday. But after I did that like 2 or 3 times through like a 2 or 3 year period, like I haven't done ozone. I think I did one ozone when I got back from Costa Rica, and I did one last week, but that's it. And I just feel like now I'm more on this kind of maintenance protocol, because in the beginning I had mold poisoning, mold toxicity.
Mm.
I'm sure I had parasites and I mean, I worked construction before I did what I did now, and I've been doing what I do now for over 13, 14 years now, but I'm sure I had all types of toxins in my body, and I was also sweating and doing all my nutrition and everything when I do those protocols. And I don't think I could have done those protocols as long as I did without it. But I'm just saying that I couldn't even finish through all the actual protocols you see online that a lot of people push.
Yeah.
And especially Ed McCabe. I remember talking with Ed back in the day,
Hmm.
um, and talking about what he was doing, and the type of machines that he was creating and stuff like that. And yeah, I feel like ozone does something where you start to be able to feel, and you start to be able to recognize your body in a new way, because when you get the feeling of what an oxygenated body feels like, or an ozone body feels like, you start to wake up to this newfound idea of wellness and well-being. And I get nervous talking about this sometimes, because I don't want people to think that every time they do an ozone, they need to feel better or feel a certain way. That's not the case. It's more of like this bird's eye view, long term kind of
Yeah.
um, evaluation of what's going on. I just noticed now, like, if like we got back from Costa Rica, and we got back here to Dallas, and everyone had something. Everyone had a runny nose or had some shit going on, and like I can tell like instantly when something's off with me now, to the point to where I can catch it so quick that I can keep it from being like where I actually get a fever and actually get like a full on sickness. And like even now, I have a little congestion. You can kind of hear it in my voice, but that's as far as it's gotten, right? It
Yeah.
hasn't went any farther than that. I haven't had any like laying in bed or sweats or anything like this. Um, but, and the other thing is too is my I feel like my oxygen utilization has increased, and then making sure I'm stacking absorbic acid and antioxidants with that, right?
Yeah.
And then that synergy with ozone, right? Antioxidants with ozone, and that's why you probably do the infusions with the vitamin C and the glutathione.
Yeah, I feel like ozone has a lot of synergistic effects. Like I've noticed it's synergistic with NAD injection. Like I'll do a sub-Q NAD injection,
Ooh,
and
wow.
then I'll do it on the same day that I do ozone, and it's huge
Get
difference.
lit, girl. You getting people
So good.
lit.
So
That's
good.
awesome.
Yeah.
You got little bumblebees going there. That's awesome. I love that. I need to come and get a little session with you, and come
Yeah.
experience everything you guys offer. And it's just been cray cray here, and just trying to like hold on, like keep the kids in school, like keep everyone
Yes.
healthy.
Well, I need to
And
come to the storefront. I keep saying that. I'm like, you guys
we're
are,
both busy, and look, we'll make it happen. Let's like
yeah,
let ourselves have a Christmas and a New Year's, and
that's
not be
right.
so. And then
Yeah.
maybe this spring we can connect, because when we started the podcast, is like you were one of the first ones I wanted to have back on, because I really enjoyed our conversation on Instagram, and I
Yeah.
feel like I could talk with you for hours. And we've already been on this one for an hour, and I know we need to wrap it up here, but yeah, I feel like we just got started, like we did last time on
I
IG. So
know. Ozone is one of those like cool subjects I don't get to talk about with someone who knows so much about it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
But
and I'm so honored to know that you're here in Dallas, because it's like I was trained and educated by someone in Dallas, and they totally educated me wrong. They trained me
mm,
wrong. And to see someone like you that's doing it right, and someone that I can stand behind, I love being able to say, like, hey, if you haven't tried Ozone, go see her, like, and try Ozone. Like,
yeah,
just give it a go. It's worth every single penny, and get educated properly, and do the auto hemotherapy. I mean, that is like the most effective way to do it, in my opinion. It's
yeah.
I like the insufflation, but dude, so many people don't like the idea of sticking anything up their butt, and I totally get it. You know what I mean? But for
Until they
me,
feel the benefits of ozone, then they're like, I don't care
they're
what
like, I
happens.
don't care what else, they'll do it all.
Right.
But yeah, and this, like, also just like you talk about the ear insufflation, like how powerful that can be for kids. Like, as soon as my kids get something, like, I put them on that ear insufflation, and, like, I mean, they instantly, in the beginning, they were like, I don't like the way it smells, and they wouldn't sit upright, or they'd move around, have to have like a fan in their face so they wouldn't screw it
Uh-huh.
up. And now it's like they've got it dialed in where they like to wear the little stethoscope thing, and the little
Yeah.
and they see the benefits. I still can't get them to drink the water, but I love drinking ozone water. Um,
Yeah.
but I feel like with all things that can be good, you have to do it with balance, and you don't need to necessarily do it every single day. To add to what you said, like once or twice a week, especially for auto hemotherapy,
Yeah.
but I just want people to hear that, because I think a lot of times we think, oh, this is good for me, let me just take a bunch of this all at once, or let me do this a ton every single day. And that is not the case with ozone. It's
Absolutely. Yeah.
you can be consistent, but it doesn't mean consistently every single day. The ozone has a 72-hour shelf life that's in the body, and that's the time that needs to be allotted to really fully experience your first session with
Yeah.
ozone, and then jump back in, if you feel called to do that, which everyone should, because oxygen utilization is the name of the game. If we can utilize oxygen better, we'll never get sick. I
Right.
mean, and then if we do, it won't be that bad.
Yeah. I think in root cause medicine, it's so easy to be like, oh, it's gut, it's leaky gut, or it's, your hormones, or
Your
it's like,
thyroid, your liver. Oh, you're
no, it's,
deficient in this mineral, and yeah.
yeah. This is like the root of the root of the root is
hmm
oxygen utilization.
Well, and I always tell people, like, how long can you go without food? People are like, oh, 30 days. How long
Yeah.
can you go without water? Oh, like a week. How long can you go without breathing? Oh, shit. That's like a minute or two. And it's like,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
That's how important oxygen is
yeah.
for
So
us,
put
for
that
sure.
in your ozone IV bag and inject it, right? Sit with that for a little bit.
Yeah.
So, well, there. Thank you so much again for
Thank
being
you
here.
so much.
And
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you, what is your favorite Crucial 4 product?
Oh, I love M Thrive. I have that right here. And I also love the M Salt, of
Oh,
course.
nice, nice.
I use that. I recommend that up to my patients for mineral support. Like it's really one of the only things I like to recommend. It's the best.
Yeah. Have you ever made an ozone water with it?
With the salt.
Yeah.
So no, have you?
Yeah, so there's a school of thought that you don't want to
You're
put
not
any type
supposed
of
to, right?
minerals with the ozone, because they don't know how it
Yeah.
reacts. Yeah, I mean, I've done both. Like, for over 12 years, I was putting all types of different minerals with the ozone, and spinning it, and like working with all these different things. But yeah, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't.
I could see how if I ozonated distilled water and then after it's ozonated, add the salt,
Yeah,
then drink it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I like to do, because it
Yeah.
it just helps. Kind of like, I just get all irked about drinking distilled water, because I know it's like there's
Right.
no minerals
It
in it
needs
at all.
minerals in it. It's
Yeah, so
dead.
it's like, get the water ozonated, keep it cold, right, and then add some, because we do the brine with our sea salt, so it's a liquid, so I can just
Mm.
dump a little bit in and stir it up, and yeah,
Oh, that's smart.
throw it
I'm
down the
gonna do
hatch.
that.
Yeah, it's fun.
Cool.
I think there's a synergy. I definitely feel like more of an energy boost, but I don't
Yeah.
know. There's something about ozone water in my brain. Like, every time I drink it, my brain just gets like lit. Like, I just feel like
Mm.
ding, like clairvoyance kind of, and stuff like that. But
I feel
it's
that
cool.
way with nasal insufflation. And I feel like we've talked about this. You're not a huge fan of that,
It's
right?
not that I'm not a fan of it. I'm not educated on how to do it properly. Like to me,
Mm,
you're taught not to breathe in ozone.
right.
So, and we sell a machine. So like me, like I didn't want to train people on the nasal
Correct. It's
insufflation.
it's a little, yeah,
It's
dangerous.
more of like a practitioner, like the auto
Yeah,
hemotherapy. And I kind of
true.
leave it there because I mean, from what I understand, you fill it with the syringe, and then when you inject, you send it up the nose. You need to hold your breath, right? They don't need to breathe in, right? And then they just wait like how
Not
long?
that
And
long. I mean, like you said, once ozone comes in contact with a tissue, it's immediately reacting.
right.
So, yeah, I usually tell people they want to hold their breath for about 7 to 8 seconds. But if you, maybe when you come to see me, I can help
Yeah.
you do that, because talk about like an instant clarity and kind of that
More than the ears too, right? You
yeah,
would
it's
say?
different. It's different.
Yeah,
The ears
you're
are,
gonna make
I love doing the ears. The
yeah.
ears is one of my faves, but
That's cool.
yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I'll come see you and I'll get trained properly. And yeah.
That'd be great. We'll do all the
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, I'll bring Kindle with me and she'll film it and stuff like that. She really wanted us to do this podcast live together and stuff, and I was just like, man, I don't really have the setup yet, and eventually we'll get there.
Yeah.
I was gonna say let's go to the office, go to the wellness center and do it, but it's chaos in there. Like there's people going in the back, people in the front, people coming in to pick up product. I'm like, I don't know where we would do it where
Yeah.
we wouldn't get disturbed every 5 seconds, and like let alone me at my home getting disturbed, already.
Good idea to do it at my office.
Okay.
We can, while you're getting your infusion, we can, we'll have time.
Do another talk.
Yeah.
Bet that's happening. Okay, give us like six
Yeah.
months, and I'll get with Kendall when she can make it, and then Nicole will correlate it, and we'll make that happen.
That would be great.
Because I'm trying to think too, because like springtime is like when everyone gets all like the sinuses and stuff because the wind. So maybe that'll be a great time
True.
to push that insufflation message for the nose.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, it's great for
cool.
allergies too.
Yeah.
So,
Yes, which we live in like the Dust Bowl, right? So everyone around us is always like, the cedar's bad right now. I mean, I've been lucky to not deal with allergies like a lot of people in my family and community, but
yeah.
it's a big
Well,
deal.
you've dealt with mold and gut stuff too, and I think that's a big piece of it, you know.
Yeah, yeah, it's real similar, I guess.
So,
Well, cool. Well,
alrighty.
thank you again for your time,
Yeah,
and
thank you.
yeah. So, and if you don't mind, could you go ahead and uh just mention like your website, how people can contact you, your email, your phone number, like all the deets on how to contact you to do ozone therapy. Because, like I said, I tell everyone if you haven't ever tried ozone therapy, go do some ozone therapy and reach out to Darrah, and she will hook you up and get you feeling great. So, could you please let them know how to
Thanks.
contact you?
Yeah, my website is just naturalinfusionpartners.com, and you can see my service menu with my pricing there, and there is a link to book and become a new client. And I also have an Instagram. I have two handles, one that's geared more towards nurses and practitioners. I do a lot of education there, Darrah Kempka RN, and then I have my business Instagram where you can keep up with all the new cool fun things. Like I just added some frequency healing to that you can add on to a treatment, which is really fun. So that's Natural Infusion Partners on Instagram. And then I do, if you're a nurse and you're wanting to learn how to do IV ozone therapy, I am offering training for that. And I also do consulting if you're like a chiropractor who wants to do a little ear ozone after an adjustment. I can help you learn how to do ozone.
Awesome, Darrah.